Hello, this is Bill Stevens along with Steve Matchett, and this is a 1965 Shelby 427 Cobra street version. And since you, Steve Matchett, are a native Englishman,
Yes.
you'd probably be best qualified to go back to the very beginnings of these automobiles.
Well, in the year that I was born, Bill, 1962, Carroll Shelby was over in Europe exploring road racing, endurance racing, track racing, and wondering what he could do. And he approached AC Cars, who at that time, remember, producing cars like the AC Bristol. They were well recognized as a car constructor. But AC, with other constructors, were struggling to find the correct engine. One time they were using the Bristol engine, then they were in trouble and they weren't using the Bristol engine. Well, Carroll Shelby said, you guys are producing a pretty cool chassis, but how about I go over to the United States, back to the States, and try and convince Ford to chip in with an engine. We'll try and put American V8 horsepower into your lightweight car. Then we might really be onto something. That's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you encapsulated it quite nicely. They began with 260 cubic inch small blocks, moved to 289s, but in 1965, they really lit the fuse with the 427. Interesting, the 427 Cobra did not always have a 427 in it. The first cars did, and then Shelby realized that he could probably do it a lot cheaper if they put in 428s, which is what they did before going back to 427s. This car is a real 427 street car. Now, there were 260 427 Cobras built. Of those, 155 are the real 427 Cobras. Only 100 had the 2 4-barrel setup, which this car has from the factory. And then you have the fact that there were only 32 of the narrow-hipped 427 street cars built. And do you know the difference between the wide-hipped and the narrow-hipped cars?
Well, my understanding is that when Shelby, Cobra were building the race cars, they wanted to put wider rubber onto the back. That makes more sense on a track. Increase the contact patch of the tires, gives more grip in racing. Absolutely understandable. But with the road car version that Shelby wanted to get involved in, when we had that wide-hip car with the rear flanks of the car pulled out on the rear corners there, on street tires it didn't look particularly attractive. And so Shelby went back to AC and said, can we kind of pull the rear of the car in a little bit? Am I correct?
Yes, exactly. And it's a much more appealing looking car too. Now, a lot of people are familiar with 427 Cobras because of the replica market. And most Cobra replicas have the hood scoop and the side exhaust and the roll bar, what have you, the jack pads front and rear.
Yeah.
This is a true street car. It was never raced, so it doesn't have all of those parts and pieces. Another interesting thing, it's a street car, but it has the racing style pin drive wheels. A lot of the street cars had what are called the sunburst wheels, so a little deviation there.
So when we're looking at this street car version, Bill, we're looking at rarity upon rarity upon rarity, and to an extent it's what the car doesn't have the roll loop, it doesn't have the hood scoop. Those parts that are missing do not detract in any way from the desirability, the collectability of this extremely rare car.
I'll tell you another thing about the collectability of this: original engine, transmission, and rear end. Very rare to find a Cobra that still has those original pieces. And this very desirable British racing green color too really makes this car work. Remember now, there are only so many of these cars built.
Yes.
So many are still alive, if you will. And cars like this don't come up for auction or up for sale every day of the week.
Right.
So a discriminating buyer with the resources financially, and someone that either is connected to the history of this car somehow, maybe they used to have one, they sold it when the kids came along and had to go to college, now they'd like to get back into another one. There's a whole different variety of people who would be in the marketplace for this car. But what really helps is the fact that whoever does bid on this car knows that they're getting one of the finest street 427 Cobras in the world. And where will that discriminating collector be able to buy this car? Well, they'll be able to bid on it when the Apex collection comes to Kissimmee, Florida in January 6th through the 18th, Osceola Heritage Park. And if you can't be there, you can see all the action live streaming on ESPN+.